Okay, so this may be the oil episode of this series of videos. So we're going to use ballistol, which is, of course, we know it very well by now, and it should be fairly safe to use even on the wood. Actually, I may use it even to clean. This is so dusty that, well, we'll see. But we'll start with the metal parts. I have a rag here that I'll use to put the oily metal parts on. As I go through them and clean them, we'll get the oil going, and this is going to be very, very exciting. Where should we start? Should we start with the... Maybe we should start with the barrel. What do you think? Let's start with the barrel, yeah. So anyway, we'll just get that all over the barrel. Let it work just a bit, and then we'll come back with either the toothbrush or the more coarse part of the sponge and clean it up better. So be right back. So you see, especially on this area that isn't rusty or anything, we don't want to remove... Oh, wow. Look how the decoration comes to life. What's left of it, at least, once it's oiled. That's like some leaves and branches. So we don't want to braid on that side, but like here where it's rusty, we want to get that off, or at least that's what I want to do. So anyway, we'll keep oiling all the parts. For now, it's just getting oil on them so they soften up. So like rust and stuff softens up. As I mentioned many, many times, sponges are a disposable part of this kind of hobby. This is that screw that was not cylindrical. You can see the edges, I think. Very cool, the facet. Okay. Here we have that big, very tapering screw, so we'll kind of oil that one up too. We don't need them to be as new, of course. We'll just want to make sure that there's no active rust on them. This one I'll just kind of cover in oil in the sponge. There we go. And finally, the lock mechanism here. Again, maybe the easiest thing is to just kind of douse it in oil in the sponge like this. There's no soap here, I promise. No, even though the foam may look tricky. This is a new sponge. The oil is oil, and I don't have any soap next to me here. So again, look how cool. You can see a little bit of the decoration kind of popping out. So yeah, I'll let everything just kind of sit for a little bit, and then we'll come back and kind of clean it off, maybe use the toothbrush and just kind of take our time. So quick update, I am now kind of cleaning it with the brush. I've been just going through most of the parts like this, just rubbing them with the brush. One thing I did is the inside of the barrel. So the brush actually has a very perfect size. So I kind of pushed it in as far as I could and then just kind of spin, because the barrel had rust in it as well. So this is kind of what I did in a nutshell. Hopefully that will help keep it clean. And what I also started doing was, at least here, where if you remember, we had some pretty aggressive red rust, like active rust. I did take a bit of autosol with the sponge, and I'm just kind of rubbing it like this to make sure we get as much as that red rust off, because once this gun is put back together and closed up, I hope not to have to take it apart again. What I'm not doing, however, is running autosol on the parts where there is no rust. Like you'll see, this butt plate is really beautiful and has this beautiful brown dark patination. So that we're keeping, we're not touching it. Yeah, so you see the red rust is basically gone, I would say. I might keep working on it a bit, but overall, this is how we want our pieces to look before we put them back together. I might be using Renaissance wax on these as well before putting everything together, just so everything is sealed and ready to go. Toothbrush here is perfect to get into the crevices, and like, we don't want this to be perfectly shiny and beautiful. So I think just a little bit of oil will get us exactly where we need to go. Of course, my comments are always open to feedback, so if you feel I'm missing some steps here, or there's something I could have done better or more carefully, I'm absolutely open to hear what you have to say. Here we'll slightly use the green pad. I've tried it on a little corner and I didn't see any scour marks or any issues, so I think it'll be fine to use. I think you can see it yourself. Yeah, and it's just, this is the process. You keep cleaning, working, cleaning, and when you're happy, you're good. So I think we're doing pretty good here. The rust is all but gone. There are, of course, many different ways to remove rust. You could use a little scalpel in certain points. You could, you can use abrasives. You can use chelation if you want. As long as you do the job without ruining the piece of metal, you are good. Okay, so all our metal pieces have been cleaned. We've gone through the whole thing, some with a little bit of autosol in the parts that were more actively rusted, and some just with oil, as you can see here. Now we're cleaning everything up. Get that residue of autosol off wherever it may be, and remove the excess oil. And the next thing we're going to do is oil the stock and the metal parts that are still connected. And what I'm going to try and do next is going to be put everything back together, just to get an idea of whether, for example, the mechanism, I want to just get an idea of whether I can get the mechanism to work. Maybe it was just the trigger put in an incorrect position. It could even be that by the end of this video, we're kind of done, in the sense that if the mechanism works and we've got all the rust off and it's clean and we're kind of happy with what we're looking at, yeah, it might even be that that's just all that's needed to make this gun a little more presentable. Okay, here's where we'll use the sponge, the non-abrasive side, because, well, we don't want to rub anyone the wrong way. Pun kind of intended. I'm cleaning here because this was really, really dusty, and I want to kind of make sure that that dust is, that we clean it out, because it's not only wood dust, there's also rust here, so I don't want that to then potentially damage the rest of the metal once we put it in place. So I promise that the debris you see here is not from the gun, it's sponge. It's sponge fibers, so don't worry. We'll just quickly... What I'm more concerned of is kind of oiling up this metal area and cleaning up the trigger guard. There's no rust on it, but we want to make sure we avoid it too. Okay, so in terms of cracks, we have one crack here, as we saw, and one here, but it's not that bad, honestly. It's not as bad as you may think the first time you see it. Okay, we've let it kind of work a little bit. Now we'll use this sponge to remove excess oil, although I feel like a lot of it is probably being absorbed by the wood right now. It looks more supple, I would say, more beautiful. Okay, now to get everything back together. This is going to be more of a test, reassembly. I don't plan for this to be the final one. I just want to make sure, trying to understand how the mechanism works and figure out if we can make it whole again. And let's see how things work out. So let's try to understand a little what's going on here. This lock fits in here like this. and the trigger has a block that lifts something towards the back. So it probably acts on this somehow. This pivots on something, right? Or is this fixed in place? This moves for sure. But on what and how? Okay, well, actually, why don't you join me while we try and figure things out? So now the trigger is completely locked. No, not locked, but let's say there's no springiness to it. Whereas if we remove this, here, well, I mean, this is its end of the road, is down here, but we would assume obviously that this is blocking the end of the road, let's say, for it. So when we put it in, what is... So I feel like now as I put it in, this spring has to do something, right? Okay, here, now it has a bit more resistance, it feels. I wonder if something is... Okay, what we're gonna have to do here is fix this in place with one of the screws. So we had this one, which was this one here. We'll screw it not too tightly, but just so that everything kind of connects. And now we grab the cock, or I think it's called the cock, right? The hammer, oh my God, that the hammer, that's the word. Cock is the verb, of course. And we see it's springy, so that's nice. We see the hammer does move down, and to move down I need to release the trigger. So half cock, full cock, but it doesn't fall. So something is either missing or misplaced, and it needs to be something that moves the hammer. Okay, so it seems like the hammer, when you cock it, pulls back this little whatever it is, and then the trigger pushes on this lever, and this should release the hammer down. But why is it not working? My assumption here is that this spring should be above. It should hook onto this tooth, so to speak, so that when the trigger is released, this tends to pulls down on this tooth, and back releases the hammer. I'll try and figure out if that works. So it does indeed seem like this would have to kind of go above this little tooth. I'm trying to find a way to push it in there. I think it would probably be best to have the hammer up so that I can... Okay, so here is the hammer, this tooth at its lowest. What we need to do is be able to push this up, and it's just such a strong spring that it's rather hard. Maybe we can kind of push it with a screwdriver with a bit of leather here, just so we don't do any damage. Maybe this can kind of help us. Let's see. Oh man, this is a good recipe to poke your finger. No, I feel like we're so close. Because this has to do something, right? Now, when I mount it back here in the current state, there's nothing actioning it. So what would be the point of this spring? So this has to latch on to the tooth there. Also, I believe that this is actually what's pushing on the wood, because you can see this little lip of the spring, and it contacts the wood here. So I think that's what's pushing down when we cock. So basically, what I think has to happen is that the cocked position of the hammer. So when it's here, let's say, that it's here, more or less, this would be, yeah, it's cocked position, I think. Half cock would be here. So yes. So this position is, it's here, this spring should be kind of in tension up here, catching onto this. This way, when it goes down to its end run, this tooth isn't so low as we've seen it before. And so it keeps holding on to this spring. It'll make sense when I make it work. So I might have been an idiot this whole time because this spring is held in place by a screw. So what if we try to loosen the screw and maybe just reassemble the spring in its correct place? Maybe we don't even have to loosen it completely, maybe. Okay, so if I'm not completely mistaken now we should be able to place this back into its pivot here, high enough. Let's see if that works somehow. Maybe we can kind of, maybe the best way to do it is first place it like this, then position the tooth here, that goes there, right? And this, we unlock it so we can move it up. Yes. Yes, but no. So this, damn it. So this goes in its place here. We keep it high up so that we can then action the cocking mechanism to catch on that. Now we just have to kind of force the... Okay, so as a proof of concept, nothing is in place, is fixed in place, but it does work. Look, the hammer now, this spring wants to pull down the hammer, and it will only be kept in place by the... so now I only have two hands, so this is going to be a bit of a pain. Anyway, I'm going to have to take all of this apart because it's there's some rust there, which I need to clean. So I need to fix all of the mechanism too. I can't just pop it in the way it is. But we're going to first see if we can actually get it to work. Because if we can, we're kind of in a good place. No, it slipped off. Ah, damn it.
2 hours later.
Okay, this took way longer than I was hoping, but you'll maybe see something here. And it seems to be okay. I'll now just quickly reassemble the whole thing because I want to see if indeed it works. If I did everything correctly. Actually, before I do, I have to tighten a few screws. But it does seem to work. And I think I'll, in a future video, take it apart again and show you what the problem was. Because as I mentioned, I want to close this video just by putting everything together and seeing if we're good to go. Because if we are, then we'll be quite, I think we can be very happy. So, I think the first thing I want to do here is, so this is, just have one more. Okay, let me, things get slippery, there's oil everywhere, these springs are really strong, so let's just see if, yeah, the mechanism works. Okay, so we fixed the mechanism. I'll put it all together because I don't want to lose any pieces. And I don't know when I'll pick this up again. In the meantime, I want the oil to kind of act and nourish the wood and everything, and we'll clean it up later. I'm very, very happy we got the mechanism to fix, and I'll see you soon in another video where we finalize the restoration.